Hello, it is Monday the 18th of December and it's the last trading Monday of 2023 because next Monday, of course, is Christmas Day. Most markets are closed. Then the Monday after that is 2024, 1st of January. So I might do one on Sunday next week. Don't worry, I will keep updating. So seasonally, when we look at what Bitcoin does into year end, we can see that without any ETF or any other factors or wars going on in the world, we can see that Bitcoin tends to have a little rest the week before Christmas, and seasonally is pretty bullish the last week of the year in between Christmas and New Year. And I have seen some pretty exciting ones, and that is of course also seasonally where we tend to get a Santa rally in traditional markets. So let's start tonight with spot Bitcoin and where we are. I'm going to start with the monthly chart, take everything off. And you can see that we are pushing higher. So we are really correcting this 5-wave rally that we have had from the low that we made in 2019. And whenever I look at starting a new swing, my risk levels for me are always kind of equal measured move levels and stuff like that. But really, you know, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? Let's put my scribblings back on. Right. Now, from this low that we made in December 2018 to the high that we made in November 2021, we reversed at a 786 fib level. For me, in terms of kind of fib patterns and using fib patterns for targets, when you reverse it to 786 and you can get above and hold above the 61.8, which is what we did here at 28,000, 30,000, you normally go, your first target is the 38.2 fib, which is here, 43,800. This is spot Bitcoin, not the futures. And if you kind of go beyond that, it's usually based on an equal measured move or projections. And sometimes you reach as a second target this 236 fib level. So, or you reach the sort of 786, 50%, 61.8 retrace levels. I also, as you know, like to do measured moves. And so when I do that, I measure the first swing. Now here in the middle, I think that we did a little sideways ABC pattern. So that's why I've got my measurements from the November 22 low to the high that we made in April, and then I'm projecting it from the low that we made in September. And when I do that, if we go down to weekly, you can see that these levels have worked really kind of pretty well. We got above the 61.8 level, it was support, we paused at this equal measure move, and here we are at kind of a 1272 level. And for me, you know, fibs are like a ladder. As long as we don't close back underneath 40,000, we're still going up. And we're really trading sideways in this 40,000, 44,000 zone. And as you know, I'm starting to think that this ETF announcement, which, let's face it, is due by the 10th of January. It's kind of quite a narrow window now. We're really running out of time. I'm starting to feel like it's going to be a little bit of a risk event. And the risk is it becomes a sell the news event. I certainly, you know, wouldn't want to, you know, it's certainly been a really nice rally into it. But I think the bigger picture, you know, for me, what has driven really good runs in Bitcoin and crypto previously has been kind of bigger market liquidity, and the Fed looking to start, you know, cutting rates next year, I think is going to be really good for crypto as well. But at the moment, this is a little bit of a risk level and we could see a bigger pullback. Now, if you look, for me, if we confirm a reversal here or we look at kind of weekly levels, any pullback, I think, towards 36,000 would be a really cool, this previous swing low. For me, if we've completed 5 waves up here, any pullback towards 35,000, 36,000 is really kind of going to be a gift of a pullback buy level now that we've got this lovely bullish reversal and this daily and weekly trend going on. But because we haven't had the ETF announcement yet, I don't think it's going to happen, and therefore I think it's more likely that we're going to get this pullback following the announcement. We could also say that this is a pretty nice, would be a pretty nice rising channel, and I really fact, even I don't think we even fit inside of that. It's got so bullish. So yeah, any pullbacks, I think 36,000 or 35,000. This 35,000 level has previously been a little bit of a pivot level, and that's where I would be looking for pullback buys too. I don't have a bearish reversal to sell yet. I don't think we're going to get one until after the ETF announcement, and really we're just going to trade sideways into then. And you know, when Bitcoin tends to trade sideways after a really good bullish move, it's pretty good for altcoins. But at the moment, most altcoins are not rallying. They're in a bit of a pullback. And if we take a look at ETH Bitcoin, which for me is a really kind of good looking altcoin indicator, I'm still bearish ETH Bitcoin. I think we've got further to fall, and I think that the kind of last drop will be when we drop down to 0.0462 in ETH Bitcoin, because that the Bitcoin ETF approval will come first and the ETH one will come second. And I think that for me is going to be a really cool, interesting buying opportunity. It matches up with some previous highs and lows. It's pretty good support and resistance, and it's where ETH Bitcoin will have made a really nice equal measured move from the 2021 high. So you know, once Bitcoin ETF is done, I think it's time to move on. So for me, that's what I'm going to be looking for in ETH Bitcoin once we get that announcement. So what are we going to look at next? Well, what's been really exciting, I've got a couple of exciting things to talk about. First of all, Solana and Bonk. So the rally in Bonk, let's take a look at this spectacular and amazing rally we have had in Bonk, which has lifted Solana. Because for me, the key question is Solana going to keep going? And I think if it's going to keep going, Bonk, you know, they're probably going to go together. They've rallied together. I'm going to switch this into logarithmic in Bonk here, and let's take a look at this whole rally that we have had, because there are some quite interesting levels that we could pull back to, which could be quite painful if you're hanging on to your longs. First off is this opening range high, and these highs here around 49,000. What would tell us that we are likely to come back to that 49,000 level? Well, I'm going to put my fibs on from this low to high. Now, one thing about this would be back to that 49 level would represent in Fibonacci terms an 88.6 typical fib retrace. That's pretty nasty. Let's switch back out of logarithmic. And one thing I told my group was, if Bonk is going to keep going, we really kind of don't want to drop back underneath this big 236 fib level at 267,800. Once we do, we kind of risk that bigger 50% pullback and potentially back to these swing lows, which is really where our trend support is. So for me, there is a chance that we could bounce from this 175,000 level. That's 50% of this entire rally. And only I think if we see Bonk turn higher from there, you know, that wouldn't look weird either, would it? It would look like quite a reasonable pullback, and then we continue higher. But I think if we drop any more than that, for me, we're in a much, much bigger correction scenario, and we do risk that really nasty big pullback. Remember, this is a meme coin, and when the party's over in meme coins, they can be quite fierce in their pullbacks. So that's what I'm like to see. I'd like to see 175,800 if this is going to have another go, and I wouldn't necessarily be expecting new highs. If you're in this and you're looking for that bounce, when you bounce from a 50% level, you tend to go 50% the other way. Mean reverting markets tend to keep mean reverting. So we would rally 50% of the drop, then we would pull back 50% of the drop. We tend to do that thing and coiling up, and then you're looking for that breakout from those 50% patterns. So if we kept going higher, that, for example, would be a sign. So looking at 175,000 in Bonk for potentially a bounce. Let's talk about Solana, because Solana is potentially at quite an interesting level if we're going to keep going higher here. I'm going to go to the weekly chart in Solana. For me, confirm a bullish reverse. I know I lean on the 236 fib level, and as kind of confirmation that we have reversed. And there's lots of things to say to me that this is potentially a really nice new uptrend in Solana. We've flipped our weekly moving averages very nicely. And if we're going to keep going, this 236 fib level, which is 68.94, becomes really important. And if we go down and look at it on low time frames, for example, this is an hourly chart, you can see that we are actually starting to hold this 68.94 support level pretty nicely. There is some resistance that we need to get to, and I'm going to go back to the daily and look left, and we can see here around 75, 75.50, and that is kind of where we're struggling. So it's sideways consolidation, but for me it stays bullish consolidation unless we get stuck underneath 68.94 on the daily and continue lower down from there. And if we were to do that bigger pullback from here, when I look at this, I think we have a nice wave one, a big kind of correction, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waves potentially from the low that we made in the summer in June. And if you do that and you enter a bigger correction, then you tend to come back to the bottom of wave 4. So I would say straight away back to 51, 52 is likely where we come back to if we lose 68.94 in Solana. But for now, holding support, and so potentially Bonk has a good chance of a bounce here. I'm going to look at a couple of other coins. One of them has gone as a really nice mover as well, which is Track, Origin Track. Now, again, I'm going to go all the way out on this one, and we have got no kind of retrace levels on this. But when I look at this lovely big move that we had from the low, we started off a nice double bottom. When I look at this and I measure the first swing and the swing we've just done, I feel like potentially we may have just done a wave 3, and therefore, hold on, let's try this way. So I'm looking for this swing, you know, to have a mathematical relationship to the first swing. If I go down to the daily, you can see this first swing that we did. I'm not really counting because it was a big screaming higher, and then we kind of made a base, and this clearly is a lovely 5 waves up. So if we call that a wave 1 and then a 3 wave correction, then I'm always looking for a mathematical relationship and another 5 wave rally from this low here, which is what we made in September. And to be honest, that's exactly what we got in a really kind of cool way. So for me, the levels that I look for when we go beyond the equal measured move level is the 1.618, we had a little pause. 2.618, we went beyond it and it was support. 4.236 is the next fib level I look for. Then the 6.854 fib level, which is where we paused and pull back here. And as long as we hold above 5.63 using those same fib projections here in Track, I think for me the next fib target on the upside is 9.1, which is the 11.09. And again, above 9.1, I'm going to look for 14.6. And until we start losing some of these levels, we're still going up. If we were to get underneath this 6.854 level at 5.69 and find resistance, I think we could see a bigger pullback. And then remember, whenever you enter those bigger pullback levels, you look back to the previous swing low. But for now, this is still, we've had a pretty nasty inside day yesterday. But for me, this is still holding this previous high and still going higher at the moment, if you like. So looking good for Track, and potentially 9.1 next if we can hold 5.6. Now, I tend to look at this on a lower time frame, and if I go down to an hourly here, it does look like we're holding this and making a little bit of a base here. We've got a sideways range. I think back above 6.8 says we're on our way up again. So looking pretty good in Track. Another one I've been asked to look at. Let's take a look. We're going to look at COQ NU. Let's see this one. Now, if we look at COQ NU, Let's see this chart. This is another one in a screaming, really super rally. A lot of these Avalanche at the moment, you know, these Avalanche coins are paying a huge amount for inscription fees and doing really well from it. So I'm going to put regular candles on here and we'll look at this screaming rally that we've had. Looking good, isn't it? Now if we look at, apply the same rules on 4 hour, I'm looking for the first 3 wave pullback and a projection. So if we say from the, I'm using this first low, but I kind of have to say I really don't like doing this, but never mind. We're in a log scale, so it's okay. And again, I want to see, did these previous levels work? And I kind of think they did. Look, we paused at the equal measure move, it was support. 1.618 was a bit messy. 2 was okay. I think, you know, on every time scale, for me, this is still going higher. And for me, I'm going to look for 3,227 next, and then 5,000. And only if we kind of take out the previous swing low have we stopped. If I put my, what I tend to do on a 4-hour chart with high Kanashi candles like this is, if we get a red candle, I will, especially in a quite a strong uptrend, I'll put my stop underneath it, and if it keeps going in a bigger pullback, I'll stop out and I'll wait for it to turn up again. And here you can see we haven't taken out these lows at all. We're still trending higher after this 3-wave correction and not done yet. So 5, I think 500 I think would be where I'd be looking for next. It's really quite hard, you know, with doing technical analysis on really new coins like this, and really, yeah, it's a bit of a lottery. The only thing is, I would say, don't get out until it reverses. And so for me, riding these 4-hour moving averages, still trending higher, take some partial profits and pay yourself, but try and ride it for as long as you can. Okay, so tonight I'm going to talk about crypto stocks. First of all, let's talk about Coinbase, which is my favorite way to play the ETF, because Coinbase is going to be the custodian for so many of these physical spot ETF applications. I think Coinbase is going to do really well from ETF approval if we get it. And in Coinbase, let's go out to the weekly here. I'm taking this last 5-wave swing lower, and as you know, I always look to see the 236 to validate the fib numbers, and that was at 111, and this is where we made a really cool inverted head and shoulders pattern. So for me, Coinbase, we have not reached the inverted head and shoulders pattern target yet from this inverted head and shoulders. That comes in up here at 193, and the 50% retrace level of this swing, which is at 200. In fact, I don't think I quite measured that right. Let's go from this to this high from the neckline here. Yeah, 197, 198. So 198 and 200 is my first target based on this fib pattern. Now, with fib patterns, an inverted head and shoulders pattern, you sometimes get a wobble level in between here and there. We're not going to get there necessarily in a straight line. And I think that potentially around these swing lows here in this 61.8 level, and that's where this move target would be 61.8 of the original inverted head and shoulders pattern. Around 166 could give us a little bit of a wobble level and a pullback. So if you're long at the moment looking at this, watch out for a little bit of pullback at 166, but 200 is the Coinbase stock target. Good luck with that one. Now, the other thing we're going to talk about is, you know, unless you're hiding under a rock, you have probably heard about ordinals. Ordinal inscriptions are the new kind of NFTs. They are taking over by storm at the moment. If my Twitter feed is anything to go by, they're digital assets that are inscribed on a Satoshi, which is the lowest denomination of Bitcoin. And they have, the volume in these has suddenly exploded. And these have driven up the fees for Bitcoin transaction fees massively. Now, you'd think that was bad news if you're paying the fees, but actually I think this is really, really good news because it has massively boosted the profits of Bitcoin miners. And remember, this year we're going into a halving where Bitcoin miners, fees are halved. And so getting a really good boost to Bitcoin miners' fees for something like that is really good news. It's so good that really the halving shouldn't affect them or shouldn't affect their profitability. Right now, their transaction fees are the highest that they have been since April 2021, thanks to these ordinal inscriptions. So I wanted to take a look at a couple of, sorry, that's Pfizer. Let's take a look at some of these Bitcoin miners that I think are making really interesting charts. Here's the first one. This is Marathon Digital Holdings. Another one with a really cool inverted head and shoulders pattern at a weekly 200 moving average. That's a really bullish pattern. Now, there is some resistance a little bit higher. If I measure the Fib retrace levels from the high that we made a year ago in November 2021, that comes in at 2207. But I think if we break, and we've also, around this neckline, we've got some pretty interesting support and resistance as well. It's a little bit of a sloping neckline. I don't mind it a little bit, but I do tend to kind of lean heavier still on horizontal levels. So I'm going to say this looks really good for more upside, but watch out for a little bit of a holiday wobble around 2207. So when we get up here, we could have a little bit of a pullback. But if we break above this 236 fib and we kind of confirm this really cool looking bottoming pattern, where are the targets for Marathon Digital Holdings? Well, the lowest low here on this chart was in March 2020 to this high that we made in November 2021. And if we zoom out, even if all we're doing in this Marathon Digital Holdings is a big three-wave ABC correction, that makes it quite nice because we can measure from this low. I don't think it is because, to me, this looked like a lovely five-way rally, but I'm always open to being wrong. So if we can break and hold above 22 in Marathon Digital Holdings, the 61.8, that's where this rally would be 61.8 of the first swing, which is very common in corrections with an ABC. The first target then becomes 54.78 and 61.8 retrace of this swing. And obviously, if we do the equal measured move things, we get a marginal new high here at 86.62. So I kind of really like this. I'm leaning a lot on this lower target of 54. Mainly because there's such good, if we look left and we think this was potentially a head and shoulders that fell, there's such really good support and resistance in Marathon at this 54.78 level, which is really 55. So we can see highs, 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 pretty good level. So I'm watching to see if we can have a breakout, because then I think we've got a really nice long setup here between these levels in Marathon Digital Holdings. And if you scoot through all of the Bitcoin miners stocks, there are quite a few of these patterns out there. Another one that, let me find the ones that I really like. Let's talk about this one, BITF. Bitfarms, another NASDAQ stock. This is one that has got the same inverted head and shoulders pattern and has broken above it and has smashed through last week that 236 fib level that we are looking at in Marathon. So here's our inverted head and shoulders pattern. Here's our weekly 200 moving average smashed above it. And we've smashed above this 236 fib level too. Now we've got some pretty nasty support and resistance here around this 3 level in Bitfarms. And so I am expecting this 236 fib level on a pullback to be support for more upside at 2.65. Having a little bit of a pause here, we're doing a little bit of a correction. It's not a bearish reversal yet. One thing I would say though, for me, when head and shoulders patterns fail, or when you got them wrong, it's usually because they are smaller equal measured moves. So if we were to do this here, you can see that potentially we are around that equal measured move level. And you know, when I think I've seen an equal measured move level, if we confirm the reversal back underneath this 61.8, so we would be pretty bearish, wouldn't we, here back underneath 2.09. And really I'm looking for this 2.65 in Bitfarms to be support on a pullback and a retest. So there are some pretty cool charts out there, and there are some pretty good ways, I think, to play what's going on in the market with less risk than some of these coins, and other ways to trade it as well. So if there's any other really interesting charts you see that you'd like me to take a look at, let me know. But yeah, I do think as long as these fees stay up there and this, you know, boon in ordinals continues, then I think that Bitcoin miners should continue to enjoy really kind of windfall profits, and some of these stocks look really cool. So good.